The alarm goes off before the sun even thinks about rising, and you drag yourself out of bed, not because you're excited to start the day, but because you have to beat the traffic, and in that early, groggy moment, you already feel the weight of the hours ahead. The commute isn't just a transition from home to work, it's a slow, often grueling process that starts to erode your life the moment you step outside. Every minute spent crawling through congested streets, packed like a sardine into a crowded bus, or waiting on a delayed train is a minute you will never get back, and those minutes quietly accumulate into hundreds of lost hours over the course of a year. Think about it. Even a seemingly manageable commute of 30 or 40, 5 minutes each way quickly becomes dozens of hours a month, hundreds of hours a year, hours that could have been spent on things that actually enrich your life, like resting to recover from the demands of the previous day, exercising to strengthen both body and mind, learning a new skill that might one day unlock new opportunities, building side income that could accelerate your financial freedom, or simply being present with the people you care about most. And yet, for most people, these hours are surrendered without a second thought. Time doesn't appear as a line item on your bank statement, so it's easy to overlook its value. But if you take even a modest hourly rate and multiply it by the total hours spent commuting, the financial impact is striking. Thousands of dollars quietly disappearing from your life without anyone noticing, all while most people go about their routines thinking of long commutes as just part of the job, never stopping to calculate that in reality, they're donating a massive portion of their lives for free. Beyond the sheer quantity of lost time, there's the cumulative mental cost that most fail to recognize. Commuting isn't a neutral activity. It's a source of constant stress, starting with the early morning rush, the anxiety of being late, the unpredictability of traffic jams, and the discomfort of crowded public transport. That stress doesn't vanish the moment you step into the office. It carries over into your workday, subtly reducing focus and productivity, and when the workday ends, it follows you home, sapping the energy you might otherwise use to relax, connect with family, or pursue personal projects. Over time, this continuous cycle of lost time and persistent stress compounds, quietly undermining both physical and mental health, contributing to fatigue, irritability, and even more serious health risks, all while society encourages us to accept it as normal, as though suffering through a daily grind is an unavoidable rite of passage. And while people often focus on tangible commuting costs like gas, tickets, or vehicle maintenance, those expenses, while real, pale in comparison to the true cost, which is intangible yet far more pervasive, the drain on your time, your mental bandwidth, and your overall quality of life. Every morning spent in traffic isn't just a minor inconvenience. It's a small, incremental surrender of control over your own schedule, a trade-off in which the employer, the city, or circumstance takes hours that could have been yours to use meaningfully. Imagine reclaiming even a fraction of that lost time, mornings without the rush, afternoons with energy to pursue your passions, weekends that feel genuinely restorative rather than a scramble to recover from exhaustion. The math is simple, yet rarely applied time, multiplied by your potential earning or personal growth, equals opportunity lost, and when stacked over years, it represents a silent, invisible tax that no one credits you for. This is the unseen cost of commuting, the part that goes unnoticed because it's not immediately measurable, yet it is the cost that hits hardest and lasts longest. Before fuel bills, bus fares, or parking fees even come into play, understand this fundamental truth. The first, most expensive, and most damaging cost of commuting is time itself, and it stealthily erodes your life while masquerading as a normal part of adulthood, quietly reshaping your schedule, your health, and your happiness without ever showing up in an invoice, a paycheck, or a financial statement. And the irony is that most people accept this as inevitable, never stopping to ask themselves what they could do with those hundreds of hours each year if they weren't trapped in traffic, never imagining the real power that comes from taking back even a fraction of that stolen time and redirecting it toward the things that actually matter, the things that make life richer, healthier, and more fulfilling. Now let's talk about the costs you actually notice, the ones that hit your wallet directly, the ones that make a tangible dent in your finances and can accumulate faster than you realize. Every day you leave home, you're paying in ways that don't always feel immediate, but add up relentlessly over time: fuel for your car, public transport fares, ride hailing fees, tolls, parking charges, and the inevitable expenses of vehicle maintenance. Each individual payment may seem small: a few dollars for gas here, a monthly bus pass there, a ride hailing fee when you're running late. But when you zoom out to a full year, those minor, seemingly harmless amounts suddenly compound into a figure that can rival a luxury vacation, fund a serious investment, or cover months of rent in some cities. Fuel costs, for instance, fluctuate constantly and rarely trend downward, so every week brings a new calculation, a new adjustment in your budget, and yet, over the months, those weekly fills quietly aggregate into a striking sum. Public transportation, while appearing to be a more economical option, carries hidden costs that are easy to underestimate. Monthly passes may seem affordable, but add in last mile rides, occasional surge pricing, and the small premium for convenience. And suddenly your total outlay climbs far beyond the ticket price printed on the transit card. Vehicle ownership brings its own relentless financial pressures. Every mile you drive adds wear and tear, gradually eroding the value of your car while simultaneously generating predictable, recurring expenses: oil changes, tire replacements, brake repairs, battery checks, and general upkeep. And this isn't just the cost of maintaining a vehicle, it's also depreciation. Your car isn't losing value because it's old, it's losing value because you're using it to sit in traffic every single day, a slow, invisible drain on your net worth that most people never quantify. Even if you don't own a car, the costs manifest in other, less obvious ways: higher ride hailing fares due to longer distances or peak time demand, paying for the convenience of faster routes, or choosing pricier services to save even a few minutes of your precious time. Over the course of 12 months, these expenses accumulate astonishingly quickly, and without careful tracking, it's easy to cross the 10,000 mark before you even realize it, and that's before you factor in unplanned costs like emergency repairs, sudden fare hikes, or unexpected tolls that sneak up on your budget. The danger lies in familiarity. Because these payments are routine, they fade into the background of your financial consciousness. You stop noticing them, stop questioning them, and that is exactly how they grow unchecked, quietly siphoning money that could otherwise be invested, saved, or spent on meaningful experiences. The reality is that commuting is a deceptively expensive habit. Its costs are incremental, almost imperceptible in daily life, yet over months and years, they become painfully concrete, shaping your financial landscape in ways that rarely show up on a standard budget sheet. The repeated micro payments mask the macro problem, lulling commuters into a false sense of affordability while their wallets are steadily drained. Even someone diligent about monthly budgeting can fall prey to this effect because the expenses are dispersed, hidden, and normalized. Gas prices spike, fares rise, tolls increase, and vehicle maintenance inevitably costs more than expected. Yet these are seen as routine or unavoidable rather than as a systematic leakage of resources. Over time, the financial strain compounds alongside the time cost of commuting, creating a dual burden that is often underestimated. You are losing hours that could be spent productively or pleasurably while simultaneously losing money that could have been directed toward long-term goals. When you add it all up, fuel, fares, tolls, parking, maintenance, depreciation, surcharges, and the occasional emergency, you start to see the true magnitude of the financial commitment that commuting silently demands. This is why routine familiarity is so dangerous. The very predictability of commuting expenses makes them invisible. Unlike a single, large purchase that forces reflection, commuting costs are continuous, normalized, and psychologically easy to accept. They blend into the rhythm of your daily life, so you stop noticing the erosion of your financial freedom even as it steadily mounts. By the time you pause to take stock, the cumulative effect over a year or multiple years can be staggering, turning what once felt like an ordinary necessity into a silent, expensive habit that drains your resources, limits your options, and reinforces a cycle of dependence on a routine that is, when measured carefully, far costlier than anyone admits. And yet, because these costs are familiar, because they have become background noise, most people never question them, never fully account for them, and never consider alternatives, allowing this slow financial bleed to continue unchecked while life passes by minute, dollar by dollar. Commuting doesn't just move you from home to work, it reshapes how you spend the rest of your money. When time is tight, convenience wins. Breakfast becomes a takeaway coffee and pastry. Lunch turns into overpriced meals near the office. Dinner, often ordered in because you're too exhausted to cook. Each decision feels small, even justified. After all, you're busy. But these convenience choices are directly caused by commuting. If you were home earlier, if you weren't drained from travel, you might cook more, plan better, and spend less. Over a year, daily coffee runs, impulse snacks, and delivery fees can quietly consume thousands of dollars. Add work clothes that wear out faster, grooming costs to stay office ready, and occasional stress spending to reward yourself for a hard week, and the total keeps climbing. This is the hidden layer of commuting expenses, money you don't mentally label as transport. But that only exists because your day is structured around travel. When people wonder why their salary never seems to stretch far enough, this is often the missing explanation. The commute isn't just expensive on its own, it triggers a chain reaction of spending that keeps your finances on a tight leash. Here's the part most people don't realize until it's far too late. Commuting, particularly long, slow, stressful commutes, doesn't just cost time or money quietly, but powerfully takes a toll on your health, with effects that accumulate gradually and invisibly until they begin to manifest as serious, tangible problems. Every hour spent sitting in a car, on a train, or packed into a bus is an hour of lost physical activity, and the consequences of that sedentary behavior are significant. Muscles stiffen, circulation slows, and metabolism suffers, all of which contribute over time to weight gain, decreased cardiovascular health, and a higher likelihood of chronic illnesses. Meanwhile, the stress of commuting keeps cortisol and other stress hormones elevated for extended periods, creating a continuous strain on the body that can lead to high blood pressure, anxiety, and a general sense of fatigue. This stress isn't confined to the commute itself, it spills over into the workday, reducing focus, creativity, and efficiency, and then trails you home, leaving you too drained to exercise, prepare nutritious meals, or engage in restorative activities that could counteract the damage. Sleep, already a scarce resource for many, is often sacrificed for the sake of early departures and late arrivals, creating a vicious cycle. Less sleep amplifies stress, reduces energy, impairs cognitive function, and makes it more difficult to maintain healthy habits. Over months and years, these patterns compound, producing not just abstract risks but real, measurable consequences: medical bills for checkups, medications, or treatments, lost workdays due to illness or burnout, and reduced long-term earning potential because fatigue, stress, and poor health diminish the capacity to perform at peak levels. Even in systems with partial healthcare coverage, there are still significant costs, including co-pays, therapy sessions, medications, elective procedures, and preventive care, all of which add up. But perhaps even more costly are the indirect consequences: the energy you lose, the focus that wanes, and the opportunities you miss because you are too drained to negotiate a raise, pursue a promotion, or launch a side income stream. In this sense, commuting doesn't just subtract money from your wallet today, it erodes your earning potential for tomorrow, limiting what you can achieve and accumulate over the course of a career. Mental health is another critical factor that is often overlooked. Chronic exposure to the stress of commuting can increase anxiety, irritability, and risk of depression, while burnout, both physical and psychological, reduces productivity and motivation, which in turn can affect performance reviews, promotions, and long-term income growth. Even smaller, repetitive discomforts like back pain, neck strain, headaches, or eye fatigue from staring at devices during commutes contribute to a persistent sense of low energy and dissatisfaction, which can slowly erode both well-being and ambition. Over time, these cumulative effects can be enormous. When people calculate the cost of commuting, they often focus only on gas, tickets, or parking fees, but the indirect health-related costs, missed opportunities, reduced energy, lost productivity, medical expenses, and the psychological toll often far exceed those direct costs. The commonly cited figure of 15,000 per year starts to feel conservative, even understated, once you consider all the ways commuting silently exacts a price from the body and mind. Your physical and mental systems are keeping their own detailed ledger, tracking stress, inactivity, sleep deprivation, and illness, even if your budget does not reflect any of it. The irony is that these health-related costs are largely invisible until they reach a tipping point, by which time the consequences, high medical expenses, diminished career growth, chronic fatigue, and even long-term health problems are already well underway. Every hour spent in traffic, every mile of slow transit, represents a subtle yet constant drain on your body's resources, sapping energy, reducing resilience, and limiting your capacity to thrive in both personal and professional realms. Over years, the indirect financial and health-related toll of commuting can eclipse what most people are willing to acknowledge, quietly shaping life outcomes in ways that are difficult to reverse. Ultimately, the true cost of commuting is not just the money spent on transportation or the time lost to travel. It's the gradual, pervasive, and often unrecognized burden placed on your health, your energy, and your potential, a toll that grows daily, month by month, and year by year, leaving a permanent mark on both your physical well-being and your financial trajectory, and proving that your body, more than your budget, keeps the receipts for every mile traveled and every hour spent in transit. When you combine the countless hours lost to commuting, the direct transportation expenses, the incremental spending on convenience, and the long-term health costs that often go unnoticed, the true price of commuting comes sharply into focus, and it is far higher than most people realize. The often cited figure of 15,000 a year is not an exaggeration. For many workers, it is a realistic, even conservative estimate of what commuting costs when you account for every facet: time, money, energy, and opportunity. This number represents more than just dollars and cents. It represents evenings spent staring at traffic instead of with family, mornings when the alarm dragged you out of bed before the sun even rose, and hours that could have been devoted to exercise, hobbies, learning, or building side income that were instead surrendered to crowded buses, delayed trains, or endless miles of bumper to bumper congestion. It represents the energy that was drained before the workday even began and the stress that lingered long after the commute ended, silently reducing productivity, lowering focus, and sapping motivation for the very things that could enhance both personal satisfaction and financial growth. It represents opportunities postponed, side projects not pursued, promotions not chased, networking events skipped, or entrepreneurial ambitions deferred because the mental bandwidth and physical stamina simply weren't there after a long, stressful commute. And while no one expects that every commute can be eliminated overnight, this total cost should provoke serious reflection about the trade-offs we accept as normal without question. Could remote work, flexible hours, or staggered schedules reduce the time lost each day while maintaining or even improving productivity? Could relocating closer to work, even if it means sacrificing a slightly higher salary, actually result in net financial and emotional gain by reclaiming hundreds of hours each year and reducing stress-related health risks? Could small but deliberate choices like combining errands, choosing alternate routes, or prioritizing active transport mitigate the cumulative drain on time, money, and well-being? When you stop treating commuting as a fixed, unavoidable part of life and instead recognize it as a major expense, one that impacts not just your budget, but also your energy, health, and long-term earning potential, your decisions start to change. The calculus shifts. What once seemed necessary, routine, or trivial now demands careful evaluation because each mile and every minute carries both visible and invisible costs that compound relentlessly over months and years. It becomes clear that commuting is not just a line item to tolerate, but a multidimensional burden that quietly shapes life outcomes, dictating how much time you can devote to meaningful relationships, personal growth, and financial advancement, while subtly influencing mental and physical health, overall happiness, and even career trajectory. In this light, the 15,000 figure is less a financial estimate than a metaphor for the cumulative toll of commuting, translating hours into dollars, stress into medical costs, lost opportunity into unrealized income, and fatigue into lower life satisfaction. Every minute in transit, every fare paid, every mile driven, and every additional calorie burned through stress and inactivity is part of a ledger that rarely shows up in conventional accounting but nonetheless exacts a real, measurable price. Recognizing this cost invites questions that many workers have never considered. What is the value of reclaiming even a fraction of that lost time? How might your quality of life improve if mornings were calmer, evenings were longer, and your energy was preserved for work that truly matters or for personal pursuits that foster growth and joy? Could investing in alternatives to long commutes, be it by negotiating remote work options, relocating closer to the office, or shifting work hours, offer returns far greater than the apparent savings from a slightly higher paycheck or a longer commute that feels inevitable? The essential insight is that commuting is far more than a logistical necessity. It is a complex, multidimensional cost that quietly erodes financial resources, health, and time, creating an opportunity cost that compounds every single day. By treating commuting as a tangible, accessible expense rather than an unavoidable condition of employment, workers can make more informed, strategic choices that affect not only immediate financial outcomes, but long-term well-being, career growth, and life satisfaction. The true cost of commuting is not just the gas, tickets, or fares, it is the hours, the energy, the opportunities, and the health quietly sacrificed over years. It is a burden that accumulates silently, month by month, mile by mile, yet one that can be measured, mitigated, and, in many cases, reduced with conscious decisions. When you account for the full spectrum of commuting's impact, it becomes clear that every choice about how, when, and where you travel for work is an investment with real returns or real losses on your life, and recognizing this fact transforms commuting from an accepted inconvenience into a critical consideration in managing time, health, money, and ultimately personal fulfillment. In short, the true cost of commuting is not merely what you pay to get to work, it is what it quite quietly takes from your life year after year, and understanding that cost is the first step toward reclaiming it.